Hey everyone, this is Jane with Barlow Herbal, and happy Sunday, April 27th of 2025. Now I have a really fun message for you today, a deep thinker, a head scratcher, a hopefully sit into your soul kind of a message that dropped in a beautiful way last weekend. After I recorded my Sunday message last week, I met up with my friend who had just finished a 10-day silent retreat. And I thought you might find it interesting, some of the things, and I wrote down some things that she said. This wasn't her first silent retreat, but this was my first kind of foray into really talking to somebody who'd experienced this. And then what I did after I talked to her and she gave me her insights, I think it's one of those things that's hard to describe. Just like if you have someone that recounts their near-death experience or what it feels like to be in the presence of the divine because of like a near-death experience, it's very, very difficult to describe because it's so beautiful, so amazing, so magical, and all this stuff. And I think that this is what it feels like for people who spend 10 days in a silent retreat. So basically, this is what it said. I put here in my notes. She said it might feel like you're going to go a little crazy sometimes, and she said that's totally true. Is that when you're very first doing it, because you don't write anything, you don't watch anything, you don't read anything, and you don't actually make eye contact with anybody. So it sounds like you might go crazy a little bit because we're so used to always being connected, except for when we're sleeping. We're always connected to something or someone, or we're doing something. Even when we're meditating, for the most part, we have a set time. We might have an hour. But can you imagine doing a meditation and a connection with just yourself for 10 or more hours a day? And it's definitely something that has cracked upon my radar. So let me actually just go through this. So you might feel like you're going a little crazy. Time gets weird. Silence is more than just not talking. So it's, like I said, you aren't talking to someone, you're not writing, you're not making eye contact. And what my friend said is that it's surprisingly intense and deeply revealing. I can only imagine. I can only imagine. And then one of the cool things is she told me that it feels like your brain gets rewired a little bit. Okay? Food and sleep become sacred. So you really apparently look forward to the sleeping part and then the food part, which I think, if you're a human being who likes to eat, which I can't think of anyone who doesn't, I look forward already to eating. Every single time it's time to eat, it's always look forward to. But this even gets heightened, which is amazing. You get a crash course in a little bit like the Buddhist philosophy of just being with yourself and all the stuff, which I've never really studied Buddhism on a deep level. So that's something that I can imagine that you would actually get that. And then she told me that sometimes when those days would go on and she was sleeping, that she would be dreaming, but she would be dreaming that she was meditating, which I think that is fascinating. And then the final thing that she told me is she feels like it makes her become more compassionate. And it becomes an automatic piece of who she is when she leaves this space and this time. That just incorporates it into her daily life, which I think was really fascinating. So then what was interesting is as we were chatting, as we were talking, and our conversation kind of flowed to other things. And, when you're with a dear friend, you start talking about things in your life that have been your biggest challenges, the people, the situations that have really caused you a lot of heartache, angst, hurt, whatever. But they've also been your biggest teachers. And so what I came up with during that conversation was like an epiphany of that all these people and situations and things are my love teachers. So then right after that, and when I first started journaling, which was last Sunday, I wrote, "Who are your love teachers?" And then I left a huge space in my journal. And as the week went on, and I would either be sitting in a meditation, or I would be doing the dishes, or I'd be making myself a cup of tea, or when a person or a situation would come into my awareness that I hadn't thought of, that was who or what I would consider a love teacher, I wrote them down. And I have this huge list of all these people and situations that I would consider to be my love teachers. So then I wrote this: what is a love teacher? They can be people, situations, they can be addictions, they can be hurts or wrongs or fears. So those are all the things that I could come up with in my own life that I figured would be considered a situation or person or an event that taught me about love, and it taught me to be more in love. So staying in love is how our soul ascends. And then I wrote, that's it, when we stay in a place of love. So then I thought, well, you know what? What are some questions that I could use in each of these categories that would help spark something in you that this sparked in me this week, that would help you really think about situations and people that have been challenging and consider them teachers of love. Okay, so the first category that I came up with here was people as love teachers. So here's the first question: who in your life has given you the most challenges? And trust me, when I started writing all these people down and I left enough space for that to happen, it got completely full. It got to the point where they were off to the side. In fact, let me see if I can find that, and I'll actually show you. So look at this. And I'm not going to even, lots. And I expanded on a person that has given me extra love lessons. So who in your life has given you the most challenges? And then ask yourself this: were they sent to teach me how to love myself deeper and better? Were they there to teach me something about myself? That's a good way to look at it. And then here's another question. Think of someone who hurt you, okay? And ask yourself this: what part of me needs to rise to meet that moment with grace and to meet that person? This is probably a really good place to put this. So I have a sister who has stepped out of all of our lives except for the ones that agree with her politically. And she feels very hurt by us. And I am one of the people that she has stepped away from. And even though we've never really had a political conversation, she knows, she has a good idea how I would vote, or what side I would agree with. But to be honest, we've never had a deep enough conversation for her to even get to the bottom of any of that. And not just who I might have voted for, but why. It's an interesting thing. So I wrote this question because I thought of her. Think of someone who hurt you. Because in her mind, and from the very minuscule texting that we have had with each other, because she's now asking no more. I don't want to text, I don't want to talk, I don't want to, she's separated away so she can find some clarity, which is, that's totally fine. But in her perspective, so this is me, and rather than being hurt by her, this is me putting myself in her situation. So if I were her, and I would say, think of someone who hurt you. So because of the way that I believe politically, she feels like this is an affront against her. So ask this: what part of me needs to rise to meet that moment with grace? So this is something for me to ask myself, where when this first happened with this amazing sister who I love deeply and dearly, I felt hurt I felt hurt by the fact that she didn't want to talk with me about why she feels like I did something that would offend her or whatever. How does that allow me to step up to the situation and her with grace rather than anger? Because I do have a couple of other siblings who she's cut off too, and they're hurt and angry. And it's very difficult. This situation, with the way the world is right now, and families are cutting each other off, is deeply hurtful. And so what part of me needs to rise to meet these moments with grace? This is really something important that you can ask yourself. Talk about a love teacher, right? Okay, and then I ask this question. And this is a question to ask yourself. Are you still holding resentment? And what would it take to release them with love? Not for them, but for you. And this is for our own freedom and our own liberation. And this, at the bottom of it all, is forgiveness. And, I have people who, I really think about people who I would say, I forgive you, and they would be mad that they would think that they had even hurt me, where I would need to forgive them, if that makes sense. Interesting, right? Okay, so the second category after people then is situations. Okay, so here's a question, because there are situations that are happening that can trigger an awakening. Okay, think about that. Look at all the things that happened since COVID. Talk about a triggering of awakening. Okay, so here's some questions. Go through everything that feels like it is breaking you. Okay, and I also wrote a big list of situations that have felt like they would break me. Dark nights of the soul. Okay, realizing that it's actually remaking me. Okay, rock bottom isn't the end of the foundation. It's what your soul gets to build on. Okay, it's the pain clearing away for the truth. So when there are things that happen to you in this life that feel like they're breaking you, realize that they're actually remaking you. Okay, and then here's a question. Is something wrong? It is something wrong or unfair, but it's actually been a turning point. So think about the things that have happened in your life that you just can't believe. They're so unfair, and the wrongs that have come at you, the unfairness, the injustices, okay? Have they actually been a turning point? I think that when you get through something that's really, really, really difficult, and you come out the other end, you realize that it either did make you or it did break you. Some people, they choose to never recover from stuff like that, and then they choose to be a victim. I have talked about staying in victim mentality, and it doesn't serve it. It doesn't serve you on any level. So if something wrong or unfair has happened, which it happens to every one of us, is it actually a turning point? During the moments of chaos or loss, did you choose love over fear? That's a question. You look at, and I would suggest, if you take a moment, or you've been taking my ideas of journal prompts, sit down with some of these questions, especially where it comes to people, and are they a love teacher? Situations, have they been a love teacher for you? Or have you let them be a person that dives into not just fear, but victim mentality, right? Okay, now, not only are people and situations love teachers, but I believe that addictions and different patterns we find ourselves in as human beings are also love teachers. An addiction with someone with alcohol or drugs or food or exercise or our technology, all of these are addictions, and we can look at them, give them grace, and look at them as love teachers. Okay, so here's some questions that I think are really important to ask yourself, because we all have our addictions, right? What do you do, or what do your addictions try to protect you from feeling? This is where all addictions stem from, okay? Substances, people, approval, and distractions. These are all addictions. And what do these addictions tried to protect you from feeling. An addiction to alcohol protects you temporarily from something really tough, from something really hard. It doesn't matter what it is. It might be your parents got divorced when you were young. It might be a girl that you fell in love with broke your heart, or whatever. It could absolutely be anything. So what do your addictions try to protect you from feeling? And then ask yourself this question: can you love the part of yourself that developed the addictions while you gently choose to outgrow them? I think this is really, really important, because what happens is when we might come out of an addiction, I think the first gut response, or the first knee-jerk response, is that we beat ourselves up. And we look at all the things that happened that were bad because of our addictions. So can we love the part of ourselves that developed the addiction while we gently choose to outgrow them? That's a powerful question, a very powerful question. And then the last question that I wrote here for addictions becoming a love teacher is this: can you treat your pain like a messenger rather than an enemy? It's almost like if you get a physical symptom, and instead of covering it up, we treat it as a messenger. Something's off. Something's not lined up. And so these pains that we have, that we use addictions to cover, treat them as a messenger rather than an enemy. I really, really, really love that. All right, and then the final thing are the love teachers when we have hurt, we have wrongs, or we have fears. Any hurt is a love teacher. Any wrong that's done to us is a love teacher. And anything that we fear, anything, is a love teacher. So here are a couple questions that I came up with for this. What old hurt still lives in you or your body? Okay, write these out. Get them out. Look at them. Sit with them. Feel what this brings up in you. And ask yourself, am I going to let this be a love teacher? Can you meet it with tenderness rather than judgment? And can we meet any of those things that hurt us, or people that hurt us, or the wrongs and the hurts and the fears? Can we meet them with tenderness rather than judgment? And then this question: have your fears shaped the way you give or withhold love? And I wrote this because I was hurt, and I've been hurt many, many times over many situations, as we all have as humans. But I was very hurt just recently with my sister pulling out of our family the way she has. And I think that this hurt that she feels we have done to her, by simply having a different belief system and a worldview, she's withholding her love from us. But here's the thing: we, the ones that she has chosen to disconnect from, we can choose to withhold love from her. We can choose to be angry and hurt. So it's a love teacher on both sides, right? And then this: could your greatest fear be the gateway to your greatest expansion? I've talked about this over the years. My whole thing with my fears during COVID, the fears of us losing our freedoms, the fears of, there was never a fear of the virus. And for some people, that was their entire fear. So let me read that part again. Could your greatest fear be the gateway to your greatest expansion? These are some really beautiful things to journal on. So then I wrote a few questions to wrap this up, because I think this is a really beautiful, short and sweet Sunday message, because love teachers are everywhere. They're everywhere for us. So here's some questions that I wrote that we can wrap this up with. What if the people and the experiences that you've tried the hardest to forget are the ones that your soul chose to remember? Right. I mean, what can you say to that? What if these experiences that we've tried so hard to forget, what is the reason our soul remembers them? Why do we not only hang on to these things that cause us hurt, but then how can we swap them into a love teacher? That's really awesome, right? So then of course this. What if this is all happening, all these things happening for you rather than to you? This is something if you've been into personal development, you've listened to anything Tony Robbins says, it's life is happening for you, not to you. You can choose. You can choose if life happens for you rather than to you. Again, you can be a creator or you can be a victim. You get to choose. And then the final question that I wrote in this weeks of journaling about this topic. Can you imagine being so rooted in love that even the hardest moments become sacred? Holy wow. What if the hardest things that happen in your life, I can think of some even in the very near past for me. And that just kind of came through. Like, what if I look at them as sacred love teachers rather than something that happened to me, something that I was wronged, I was discriminated against, everything flips. The whole game changes. And I think that this is a time where our rise in consciousness is becoming so apparent and the timelines, I talked about the timelines last week. You're going to be able to sit on the fence for only a very short time. And what I would say is if the higher timeline is pulling you, the timeline of love and love teachers, letting any situation, person, or addiction be a love teacher rather than put you into a disconnection from the ones you love, a victim mentality. This is the time to jump off the fence if you're still there. And here's the thing, if you realize you're on the fence, I believe you're already on the awakened timeline because you see that there is two timelines. You can see the people that are on a different timeline, right? In fact, an interesting thing here to probably share. So my sister, who has stepped away, her birthday was this last week, and I sent her a text, and she didn't respond. So, and it was just a birthday, happy birthday, I love you text. And then my husband, who, has been very close to all my sisters and all my brothers and all of their spouses, he loves my great big crazy family, and he's especially loves and is close to this particular sister. He texted her, and she responded back because she knows that they are aligned politically. Which, if you think about it, I will say, this is probably a good place to say this as well. My husband and our differing worldviews and the differing things that we all have as people that are in your life and in a close way, I would say that he is my biggest love teacher. And I'll just leave it right there because I'm sure that you have people that you're close to that have been the same. And, it's made me grateful for my recognition of the things that are important as we go through this life. And, for me, it's a rise in consciousness. It's a rise in my soul's growth. It's me with a desire to escape this matrix. This is these little things that we walk through life that we let hurt us and destroy us and make us mad and make us not forgive. That's all a bunch of BS if you really look at the bigger picture. And the thing is I don't think I know the whole picture. And I mean, I imagine it so much grander and so much more amazing that why would I want to let my disagreement over a worldview with someone that I care about destroy something that's not important. I'm not saying that maybe over something that's not important. my goals for this lifetime are exactly that. I want an extreme rise in consciousness. I want to escape the matrix. I want to escape off of this planet. I don't want to come back. This is the last time this is why I meditate. This is why I journal. This is why I treat this physical vessel with respect, so that I can stay here a long time, so I can get it right, whatever that might mean. There are things that rock me as I walk through this planet and this life, and I learn things, and there are things that still kind of shake me to my core when I find out new things that land in me that feel like truth. And then if you can look at those things and say, what is this teaching me? Especially, what is this teaching me about love? Because I think that's the only way our soul grows, is with these really hard things. And you can tell if you've been sucked into the victim mentality. You can tell the people who have. And I will say that our addictions keep us in a place of numbness. They numb us out. I've started this thing where if I catch myself scrolling through different reels on social media, and this happens now when one of my sisters or a close friend will send me a reel, then I'll just swipe it up and I'll watch the next one. It's designed so perfectly. I've reached a point where if I catch myself doing that, I will literally throw my phone onto a couch or a chair. I'm not going to throw it so I destroy it, but I am going to get it away from me. I do not want to waste my life and all of the growth and the love and the beauty that's here and spend 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour scrolling on my phone with mindless things. And the problem is these things they know what we're interested in. They know what we pause on, and they show us more of those. And it's interesting, and it's funny, and it's addicting. So let me wrap this back around to the very beginning where I talked about doing my friend with her 10-day silent retreat. I think that this is calling me. I'm a little bit, not in a bad way. I'm not really scared of it. There's a little bit of an apprehensive, something that's so outside of a comfort zone as modern humans, where we don't go on a vision quest. We don't go do something that would take us away from our family. And we have so much stuff coming at us on a constant basis. Even when we meditate, like I will meditate with my journal right next to me. That has become a habit because I get some of my most beautiful insights in my journal. So I always have my journal. So this would be something really kind of interesting and amazing, I suspect, to experience. But this is probably a really good place too, and this is where I'm going to end this. I want to bring up the focused life force energy at the very end of this, because this has created a space, a high frequency field for me, for my home, for my family, and even for my business. And this, to me, is a tool that modern technology and our understanding of quantum entanglement is a massive benefit to us being able to be that love teacher, to be the person who also looks at other people that might have hurt us as a love teacher. This is a powerful tool. So underneath this video is a little link to awakenthefield.com, the field of high consciousness. This is what this is, awaken the field. So, check it out. You can get a free trial. I know of quite a few people who've heard me talk about it, are already doing it and using it. And it's something really beautiful that I am so honored to share, because I feel like there are high consciousness companies that are here to help humanity through this transition of a higher awakening. So I really appreciate you guys being here every week. I loved this topic. I thought about it all week long of the idea of love teachers. What a cool concept. It flips the whole thing on its head, which is amazing. So thanks for tuning in, guys. I would love to know what you think about this. And You do not have to share who your love teachers are, unless you had some beautiful situation or something that would be fun for you to share. But thanks for tuning in, guys. I hope you have an absolutely beautiful, beautiful end and last Sunday in April, and we'll see you next time.